Good evening. I'm Ross from Lifetime Property Accounting, and we're just looking at what happens if I use AI. What happens if I use AI to search for a rental property with high cash flow? What comes up? We've got an example in a second, and I'm going to go through, what do the basic numbers look like? We obviously get a lot of clients looking at buying properties or just reviewing the existing properties. So, great starting point is just reviewing the cash flow. What does it look like? There might be some tips and tricks that come up as part of that. So I'll share my screen and we'll show, what was my search in AI and what sort of come up. So what we've got is, can you find me a great cash flow rental property for sale in New Zealand that has a set price? Obviously, it's always annoying when it's auction or, it doesn't give you a price. You can't work out the numbers. So something with a set price and the weekly rental income so that we can work it out. So we've searched and AI has come up with a property for me. So we're going to have a look at that property. It's given me the price, 599,000, the rent, um, some information about it, and it's given me that Trade Me link. It's actually not too bad what it's come up with for this. And so we'll have a bit of a look and see how that works. So what we look at is basic numbers for the first year. So this was Argyle Street in Howrah, near New Plymouth in Taranaki. So asking over 599. Let's say 599 for the moment. Obviously, a key thing if you're buying first property is negotiation. The cheaper you can get it, the less interest you're paying, the better the cash flow is going to be. There's going to be some costs to buy. Most likely, you're going to get a builder's report. You're going to get a valuation. There's other costs, and generally, you're going to get some sort of contribution. So, to make it simple, we'll say that those two cancel out, and you're left with 599,000. To start with, I always work on 100% debt. If you've got cash to put in, you want a return on that. So, always start off with 100% debt, no money in. We're borrowing the full 599. The week that they sorry the week that the rental that they are advertising within the post is $800 a week. It just looks a little bit older property. I'm going to go 51 weeks, but a key step, if you are serious in looking at this property, we can argue all day whether it's going to get 48 weeks or 50 weeks or 51 or 52. The best thing to do if you're actually serious is actually talk to a property manager. Say, looking at buying this property, what's the demand for that sort of property? Is there any problems with it? Does it need to be fully fenced or garage, or is there other things that it need? These are, I think, two-bedroom properties. Yeah, it's two-bedroom properties. What's the demand for two-bedroom properties? Is the rent sustainable? Yeah, a lot of those questions. And when you actually talk to a property manager, they give you so much more information. So at the moment, we're looking at a reasonable gross yield, just under 7%, 40,000 rent. So 40,800 divided by 599,000 gives us a 6.81% gross yield. That is higher than interest rates at the moment. So we should start to, hopefully get a profit from that, but we'll see how we work out. About 80% of property investors only have one rental. So I generally work accounting. It's a lot cheaper as you add more and more properties. It's more expensive for that initial accounting, that initial entity and initial advice. So I've gone higher because 80% of property investors just have one rental. Insurance for this one, I've done a quick search on Initio, looked up what the insurance was, and it was about $2,850. I'll go more exact, $2,808, I'm pretty sure it was. So there's two properties, so a bit more insurance. Again, if you're getting more in depth, you're going to look more at what that real insurance is, but it gives us an idea. Interest rates at the moment, if we're looking at 1 year, we're looking at about 4.5%. Generally, property manager about 8% plus GST. Rates on this property, they had it in the listing and I also checked the rates, how much they are going to be, and it was about $6,900. Relatively expensive, and that can make a big difference. So $6,928. Just gonna correct my insurance slightly. So rates $6,924. And what you'll find in these smaller towns is rates is higher. Something like Auckland can be a whole lot less. And yeah, the rates in a small place generally quite a lot cheaper. So we'll have a look on the Trademe advertising. So this is a picture of the property. So obviously an older property, there's two on it. So I think there's one just behind it. Yeah, so long term, do you need work on the roof? Are you going to have to paint it at some point? Yes, you are. And just sort of looking through, like it doesn't look too bad, but it is still an older property. You're going to have to do more things. Kitchen's obviously looking relatively new and fresh. Um, but yeah, two properties, older properties, roof painting. The lawns and the gardens look relatively straightforward. Um, yeah, perhaps could have just tidied this room up a little bit for the pictures. We made it a bit less cluttered, and the same with this one. But overall, not too bad, but still two older properties. So you're probably looking at least $2,500 per property, somewhere around $5,000 probably a year on average. And we're looking at a longer term. You're not looking at property investing for 1 year. So longer term, maybe about 5,000 a year, 50,000. If we're having to do roof and painting, maybe a little bit higher. So maybe we allow $6,000 for this. And then maybe you'll do some education. Maybe you'll join your local property investor association. I've been a member of Waikato Property Investors Association for literally years now. It's over 20 years. And to me, if you're a serious property investor, you should join your local property investor association. They help support us by trying to talk to the government, trying to keep the rules reasonable. And then some sort of travel. Let's go. Most people don't live in Hawera, so $500. So we're starting off with some good rent, good cash flow, thinking this is going to be okay, 6.81%. By the time we put expenses in, reasonable insurance rates, repairs, we're 49,000 off expenses, and we're about $9,000 negative for this property. I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but what I start to do is I start to do an average over the next 10 years. What happens? Yeah, interest goes up a little bit, rent goes up, interest maybe comes down again long term. So I've got interest rate averaging about 5.5%, and none of us have a crystal ball, but yeah, interest only, we're losing $9,000 a year. So that means over 10 years, you're going to cost $90,000 on interest only if you're cool hard cash. What you're doing effectively is gambling on capital gains. It obviously needs to go up at least that amount in value to break even, and you're hoping that it goes up higher. Most banks sooner or later want you on P&I, and obviously paying principal, P&I principal and interest. Obviously paying principal reduces your loan, reduces your interest long term. The big problem with this is it sounds good in theory, but you'd have to put in $17,000 a year. That's starting to really impact on your cash flow. So this looking at this property, it's highlighted the basic issue. The main issue with most properties, most things that we look at is the cash flow. Pretty much any stock standard rental at the moment, yeah, with full debt, and most people don't have cash lying around, they're borrowing it somewhere. It is negative, and that's on interest only. So ideally for a rental property, you want something that can break even, or something where you can add value, or something with a plan so you can quickly change that so that it does pay for itself and you're not losing money. Otherwise, if times gets tough, you don't get the capital gains that you're after, you and many property investors end up selling. Yeah, selling, losing money, never ever investing again. So overall with this property, to me, not loving the location, a smaller town. I haven't really looked at that too much so far. The two properties normally helps with cash flow, but the problem is it increases the value, so it can be a bit harder to sell. This one, has it increased the cash flow or not? You're still losing about that 9,000, 10,000 a year. That is a big cash flow problem. So to me, it would be a straight no, unless there's a major added value that I haven't seen. Potentially, yeah, if you could subdivide it and sell it, or yeah, subdivide it, add value. The problem with that is generally it's taxable under subdivision rules, so we'd have to check that carefully. Um, and yeah, whether there's enough in it to make it a trade worthwhile. If you are subdividing it now to keep it, then again, still got tax rules with subdivision, sorry, tax hassles with subdivision rules. But we're also going to spend more money that we're not going to get any extra income from. So that's going to make your cash flow worth short term. So hopefully that's given you an idea that AI search actually not too bad. Come up with something interesting, but you still got to work through the numbers. And like I said, if you're getting serious, you'd then actually be talking to property managers, not just flicking them an email, not just asking for a rent appraisal, actually talking to them makes a huge difference. Hopefully you found that useful. Thanks a lot. Bye.